All right. Well, there it is. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kayla Garrido, and I'm the founder of Healthy Women Leaders. Healthy Women Leaders is a collective of women in leadership who choose to unapologetically focus on their health and develop their personal power. Our mission as a group is to create space and highlight people and ideas that champion healthy living and radical self-care as a critical means to thriving in a crazy world. This video series is featuring amazing women who have unlocked a truth through health or wellness in whatever form that may take, that can be inspirational or educational or encourage other people to live incrementally better lives. And today we are talking to two financial powerhouses from Maia Wealth. We have Annie Kiser and Chandler Velde. I will introduce my dear friend, Annie Kiser, first. Annie is a wealth management advisor at Maia. She is a pretty non-traditional girl, I can say from experience, and she surely followed a non-traditional path to finance, having left her first career in healthcare to become her own first client and take full ownership of her financial universe. She's a loud advocate for total financial health and freedom, and she specializes in working with women of all ages who are looking for something different than the antiquated and highly masculine world of traditional financial planning. We also have Chandler. Chandler is a partner at Maia Wealth. She's a certified financial planner and an early investor in Maia, in which she learned firsthand the importance of making smart and calculated investment decisions with long-term goals in mind. She is fueled by working with women who want to step up their wealth game by building financial confidence and knowledge. Now, before we get into this conversation, the last thing is that these two Wonder Women host the podcast, The Naked Call, which is centered around deconstructing wealth to uncover what it truly means to be holistically wealthy. They dive into wealth as a larger concept, bigger and beyond just being monetarily rich, and they talk to people who are living their wealthiest lives in whatever context that rings true for them. Well, that was a lot. It was a big intro, but ladies, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Kayla. We're so excited, and what a beautiful intro. I wish you could just walk around with us and speak our truth for us.
I can do that. I need like a tambourine and like I'll have to be a few steps out in front of you. I can do it. Okay. Well, will you both take turns? I would love to know a little bit more about, who you are and kind of what drew you into the traditionally male-dominated industry of financial wealth and planning.
Yeah, so as you said, my name's Chandler Velde. So happy to be here. I love everything about Healthy Women Leaders. I love what you're doing, and it completely aligns with our values. A little bit about myself. I'm from California, not north or south, no glamour there. I'm from Central California. I grew up in a dairy farm, and I have a lot of siblings, a lot of cousins. All the men in my family typically become farmers, and their path is sort of laid out for them. It was a little less clear about what my path was going to be, and I was really, really nervous about it. I ended up moving high schools when I was a senior. Moved to Newport Beach with my mom, and I moved from a high school of 60 kids to a high school with 800 kids in my class. So I was exposed really quickly to making new friends, and I love to be with people and meet new people, and that was what I learned from that. We had to take an econ class, and there was a financial advisor who came in and presented to every econ class. His name was Ken South, and he was an advisor, Oppenheimer Group. He presented to every class, so 700 students. He gave out his card to everyone in the class, and he said, hey, if any of you want an internship, you can call me, and you can just sit at the corner of my desk and learn. And I go home, and I tell my mom, and I'm like, well, Mom, I want to see what this is about. She's like, okay, go ahead and call him. So I call him. He's like, come in for an internship. It's a beautiful building in Southern California. I was so intimidated. I was so scared. And I'm sitting at the corner of his desk, and he looks at me, and he's like, you are the only person out of 700 kids who actually called me to do this. And the whole industry was just so sexy, so fun. And I didn't even feel different being a woman. Like, looking back now and reflecting on it, I do feel that I did go through some different things being a woman. But that's really what drew me to being in finance and wanting to be an advisor. So I had that experience really early on. Then I went to DU, studied finance there. Internships led me to Maia Wealth, and I met my business partners in these internships, and I've really kind of known what I wanted to do and have been on this track ever since.
I love it. You showed up. That's what you did, Chandler. That's the difference between so many people who have a dream or want to get after something and don't. It's just showing up. You just made the call. Like how, and it changed the trajectory of your entire career.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been saying since high school, I want to do something that scares me every day. If I don't feel a little bit nervous, a little bit scared, I don't feel satisfied, to be honest.
I love that. Love that.
Isn't
Annie
that
Kiser.
showing up is half the job? I think it's more
something
than
like that. And then and Eleanor Roosevelt too says, do one thing every day that scares you. And I have that as a magnet on my fridge. So we just became best friends.
Love that.
So I have a complete opposite circuitous path. I definitely didn't have any foresight that I would be in the financial industry at all. So I hail from the East Coast. I grew up in DC, studied English literature in college. I'm a romantic. I'm a dreamer. I had all of these visions for myself, one of which was having a publishing company, which never happened. But as you were right, I had a very circuitous path. I worked in healthcare. And it was a mentor, Cynthia Nelson, who I was in graduate school studying public health. And she was like, Annie, what are you doing in this industry? And there's nothing wrong with public health. I loved it. I wanted to help people, which was what drew me there. But I had some issues with the jobs that were available to me. They were very kind of middle management. And I always envisioned myself being my own boss, working hard, getting paid well, and living a diverse life full of things that feed my interests. And anyway, so we were talking about one thing or another, and she said, Annie, I really think that you would be great in a male-dominated industry like finance. And I was like, whoa, okay, those are two things. Like I love men and I love money, so this sounds great. And she connected me with a guy that was hiring sort of an underling at one of the bigger wirehouses. And I jumped right in with a degree in public health into finance. And I really haven't looked back. I will say this, my first job in finance was not in my forever home. It was not, I wasn't with a company that represented who I wanted to be in this industry, but I think it was part of my path and part of my journey. And I've been here at Maia Wealth for 3 years, and it's been an amazing journey.
Awesome. It's so cool. Okay, so my first question for you ladies is, it has to do with, right? Well, at Healthy Women Leaders, we talk about all different ways that you're healthy. And in my personal past, one of the ways that I've not been as healthy as I would like is in taking kind of ownership of my finances. And I have an amazing husband who I love very much and who 100% enables me not, truly owning my finances for the reasons just kind of where our skill sets lie, right? Like he's an incredibly financially minded person and he's an attorney and, he's got all of this background that really means that he sort of takes the charge, at least the way that our division of labor happens. But I constantly feel this little tickling, like it's not the right thing for me. And as somebody who really prides myself on being as healthy as I can, I do see that this is an area that myself, as well as a few of my friends, like kind of openly struggle with. So what sort of words of encouragement or advice would you give to women like me who are, we're business women, like we're owning it in like so many different ways, but this is one of the areas in my life where I allow myself to take the back seat and I don't necessarily feel comfortable with that.
I mean, there's so much shame for women just like you who have abundant careers and pride themselves on health and wellness, but in the area of money, carry a lot of shame because they're not, like you said, they're not more active or they're not participating in their financial world. And I think you don't have to be the expert, right? It's natural in a relationship for one person to sort of take the reins more. But I guess the concerning part is that you feel there's a little ick inside of you, right? That's the part.
Right.
Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think so. All the time, the environment we create is very open. We don't want anybody to ever feel like there's stupid questions or they can't express the shame they have. And I think that's kind of a new thing in the financial services industry that's been so calculated in the past, and something we talk about right away with our clients. And the first thing we say, give that the freaking flick. Give that shame the flick. Give that lack of confidence the flick, and ask anything. Find someone who can be your financial shaman. We call ourselves financial gynecologists or financial fairy godmothers.
Nice.
Or it could be your husband, even have like an open conversation with that. The concern to me is really the lack of confidence, and it's been systematically a part of a lot of women's lives because the original or like nucleus, like you said, is typically the man runs the finances. And working on getting away from that or being okay with that is what concerns me. Like, you don't have to know if you don't want to know.
Right.
Yeah,
but you don't want to like find yourself up a creek without paddle.
No,
Totally.
No, you don't. I mean, and listen, I think there's a level of responsibility that we should all take in our financial lives, whether we're married or not. And this is a cynical view, but I'm a child of divorce, and you never know when the shit's going to hit the fan. And
Totally.
Again, it's not necessarily the healthiest way to think about it, but there is a patriarchal element that is so embedded in our society when it comes to everything around money. And we're changing that narrative, and it is happening, and that's exciting. But I think that for women like you who just have a little bit of, there's just this gnawing feeling, sit down with your husband and have a candid conversation and seek to understand. And if you feel weird about it and you don't know why, get curious within yourself. I think it's great that you're aware of the feeling, and all you can do is explore that feeling, and you'll find answers if you look inward, which sounds very, very Buddha of me, but
I love it.
100% believe that.
This is what we're here to do. Yeah. I think this is great advice, like getting curious about what it is. And in my case, not feeling like super duper comfy with it is where, you can see that something would need to change. I mean, I specifically remember like when we first got together, sitting in financial planning meetings with old white men who literally turned their focus to my husband. And I'm just like, not. So I can tell you, seeing your young and female faces would be a refreshing thing. I think that there's, like you said, it's a traditionally male dominated industry in a lot of different ways. And I commend you both for taking steps to change that. And, you're like, it would be more comfortable to talk. It is more comfortable to talk to you.
I think we're so hard on ourselves as women. And Chandler brought up a point when we were talking through these questions, is that fear of sounding stupid and not wanting to ask the wrong question, because so many women have sat in financial planning meetings with their husbands and been completely sidelined. Yeah. And it's hard not to internalize that on some level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. So another question for you is, what does being financially healthy mean to you? Like, what does that look like?
To me, I'm probably, being financially healthy is having a plan to me and knowing it's working for me in the background. I get a little bit caught up in the weeds and the tactics when I'm talking about financial health, where I feel like Andy taps into more of the emotional side. And we both work well. That's why we work so well together. Creating a roadmap of where I want to go and identifying my goals and how to get there is what makes me feel healthy. Really, financial planning, it's really fun. It's like a puzzle of how to get to point A to point B. And I've always loved puzzles and games, and that's truly what it is. And putting that together and knowing that that's happening for me is what gives me peace every day.
I think financial health is like such a nebulous term, and gets thrown around. And I think we have this idea that there's this like end goal where you're suddenly like, I'm healthy. And honestly, I think it's like everything else. It's a practice. It's a lot like, going to the gym regularly or being committed to eating well. It's part of your core values. And I think not everybody is aware of their relationship with money in that way. So to that, I would say it's a conscious awareness around tactically what your money is doing, right? Why is it in the right place? Why is it invested in what it is? Does it align with my goals? And then I think that it's awareness of a mindset around money. Is this creating anxiety for me? If so, why? And just this higher consciousness around your relationship with your finances is my definition of health. And again, I think it fluctuates, and you're not always going to be at peak health, and being okay with that too.
Yeah. And so there's a balance. And I think that we have to extend out the time frame of how you benchmark the balance. That seems to me, I often talk to women who are talking about balance and how do we, I feel like I'm way over in this side or I'm way over in this side. I'm like, just take a wider view. Like you said, it can change and it can come and go. And things like this take time, and being conscious and aware of what your finances are doing for you. Talking to Chandler, if you want to talk about the tactics, talking about Annie, if you need the heartfelt look at it. I like this.
I just think it's a different perspective. I think we try so hard to make our finances like this cut and dry black and white thing. And I see it as this big, messy jumble of a lot of shit that can fuck you up.
Yeah.
I
do. I do. Okay. So another question for you both is, and this can be when it comes to finances, when it comes to your career in finances, or maybe just kind of life in general, like what is a big lesson that you've learned in your time traversing this beautiful blue planet?
Well, so I got into this right out of college. I was always really young. I was typically the youngest person in the room, the only girl, sometimes the tallest. I'm 6'2". So I just felt kind of out there and alone. I didn't have a lot of confidence, a lot of imposter syndrome. And it wasn't until I really invested in myself and spent money on things that increase my value as like my asset, as my financial engine, is how I look at my skill set. And it took going to a coach and like actually acknowledging that I wasn't as confident as I thought I was, and getting certifications and learning more. That's kind of been my biggest takeaway, because I've always really struggled with confidence, and even doing something like this makes me incredibly nervous. So just pushing myself every day. Thank you. Pushing myself every day, probably. And just testing myself.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Investing in yourself. It's like you're investing not only in your financial plan, but also in you as the person who's curating this. And it's so much broader than just your finances. Like, invest in yourself anyway. We are our own greatest asset. And why not be like driving the top shelf version of it?
Amen.
Exactly. Yeah. And we say that to our clients all the time. Like, it's great if you want to be a do-it-yourselfer and invest yourself and do your own plans. Like, we definitely encourage people who want that to do that. But if you don't have an inkling to do that, delegate it out and work on your skill set and the things you're really good at, and make more money or more good feelings for yourself.
Yep. Love it.
I think, reaching out and asking for help is huge too. So I'm going to go with financial lesson just because it's kind of on brand for the podcast. There's so much there. So this helps focus me. Okay. Well, I feel like whether we grow up in households with a lot of money or a little bit of money, a lot of families aren't talking about money. And what that creates are a lot of humans that don't know how to think about money. And for me, a big financial lesson happened right when I started in the industry, and I was really misaligned with some negative beliefs around money. So I think finding out what your narrative around money is really, really important to catapulting yourself to the next level. I think I associated money with people will like me, with my identity, with my self-worth in a really, really unhealthy way. And I wasn't aware of it until I started working in the industry, which in some ways was the biggest gift of all, right? And so I think taking the time and doing the hard work, if you're inclined, right? Or set up the tactics. But if you're inclined, really find out what are the stories that you're telling yourself around money, and so that you can change the story. And be really informed about why you're doing what you're doing. Was a really powerful, pivotal moment for me that really changed my financial situation.
Yeah, digging
in
too.
It's like
it's shadow work. It's like this is shadow work, but like with finances, like double ooh. Wow.
Well, it's so loaded, right? We worship it. A lot of family dynamics are informed around money, and so it's just so deeply embedded in us as humans.
Yeah, good advice. Okay, ladies, how can we find more information? How can we find your podcast? How can we find, what's your website? How, if anybody is listening to this and they're really looking to be able to speak to a friendly face, somebody that they feel like they can relate to talk about their finances, to dig into that shadow work, figure out what's their narrative, like all of this stuff. How can we find more information about the two of you?
Well, you can listen to our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We release episodes bi-weekly. We'll have to have you on our podcast. Would love that. Our website is thenakedcall.com. There's a link there to schedule if you want to chat with us, or you can email us if it's more comfortable at Chandler at Maia, MAIA Wealth.com. So that's basically the RIA that we operate under. Maia Wealth is the Greek goddess of growth as well. Maia is. So we love a female named company, very aligned with our goals. Yeah, so that's kind of how you could find us. Am I missing anything? Instagram, The Naked Call on Instagram. Anything else?
No, that's
awesome.
That should do it.
That's it. And we'll put the links and everything in the description of this video so that everybody can find you. And I want to say thank you so much for joining me and, dropping your knowledge bombs. This is like I said, it's something that for at least somebody like me, you don't often think about it and you kind of skirt around the edges of it. And I just feel like it's really good practical advice. Just dive in and like get curious. And, if it's something that you want to know more about, and it's kind of like note to self, like just figure it out, handle it. We got a new year coming up. Throw that on the resolution list.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can be something as basic as like, what are the balances of my accounts? Like, just start really small. I think that's always good advice for people that are trying to approach something that has felt off limits. It's just like set very, very attainable goals for yourself.
Love it. And you don't have to be the expert. That's the other thing. Like, especially in my case, like, this guy's an attorney. He knows so much more about all of this kind of fine print business, but I need to know enough to like be able
dangerous.
To put on the superhero cape and like do what I need to do for my crew as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much for your time. I so appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.